Let's shift gears now and learn how to join a table to a table in a different database. As part of your homework, you'll be creating and populating a new database called Vaccinations2. The Vaccinations2 database consists of two tables: Vaccination, which has the vaccination ID and vaccination description, and Vax History, which stores a person ID, vaccination ID, and the vaccination date, the date that person received that vaccination. Now, you should note that in the real world, we would just put the vaccination data in the same database with all of our other data. That way, we could just join directly to the person table. The way I have it in this example, I'm going to show you with the vaccination data in a separate database from the person data, we can't enforce the person's IDs using a foreign key. So we could end up with vaccination records and Vax History that don't match a person record, and that's not a good scenario. But I set it up this way so I could show an example of a query that joins to a separate database. I'm going to show you how you can write a query that joins tables from the XYZ medical database to the Vaccinations2 database to get that vaccination data. When you reference a table in a different database, you have to specify the database name. So vaccinations2.dbo, which is the schema, which I'm sure you'll have noticed is listed with your table names over in the Object Explorer, and then the table name. So in this example, we're selecting first and last names of the distinct set of people who have vaccination records in this other database, which has a table called Vax History. So we're joining person to our current database, XYZ Medical DBF, to vaccinations2.dbo.vaxhistory, which we're aliasing as VaxHist. And we're joining on the person ID, which is in both of those tables. So when we run this, we get a list of people who have vaccination records in that other database. Now let's switch gears again and think back to summary queries. I want to show you some options you have for getting more out of your summary queries by adding summary rows to the query result. Here's an example of a query that's selecting the count of bills, the average bill amount, person city, and person gender, and it's grouping by person city and person gender. So the results of this query will give us the average for each gender within each city. For example, in Flowersburg, we can see there are 3 bills for males with average amount 93.33 and 5 bills for females with average amount 111.80. Of course, you can tell that because even though we didn't query for it, we know by now that the gender code for males is 1 and the gender code for females is 2. I am going to copy this statement and in the bottom statement, I'm going to add with rollup to the end of the group by clause, and then I'm going to run both of these queries at the same time so we can compare the results. The difference is that in the results for the statement where we used rollup, we have a summary row, this very first row, which gives us a count and average for all the bills. And also each city has its own summary row. So looking at Flowersburg again, we now get a row that shows there are 8 total bills for Flowersburg, and the average total bill for Flowersburg is 104.88. And then we have our same breakdown of bill count and average by gender that we had before. So basically in this example, using rollup gives us a total summary row for all the bills, and then it gives us a summary row for each city. Now, if we were to switch the order, we're grouping and ordering by. we would get completely different results. We would get the same row at the top, which is a summary of all the bills, but instead of getting a summary row for each city, we'll get only 2 additional summary rows, a summary of males and a summary of females. And the rest of our results will be a breakdown of the bills for that gender by city. So the roll-up keyword might be handy if you're wanting to do some data analysis. There's also an operator called cube that you use the same way as roll-up. So you would just put with cube at the end of your group by clause, and that operator will get you even further summary rows. You'll learn more about what cube does in your homework assignment. Also, you should be aware that there's a function called grouping sets that gives us results similar to roll up and cube, and you can actually pass the function the fields you want to group by and get summary rows for. So if you're looking to do some serious data analysis, you might want to look up the grouping sets function, but I won't demonstrate the use of that here. Finally, I just wanted to briefly show you that you can use some views to update the tables they select from. There are restrictions about which views are updatable. To see a list of those restrictions, go to the MSDN help website. So from the Management Studio, you can just go to Help and View Help and type in Create View in the search box at the top right once you get there. On that page, under Remarks, there's a section called Updatable Views that lists the rules about which views are updatable and which ones are not. The rule of thumb is to keep your view as simple as possible if you want to use it to update fields in the base table. So check out that list of rules and I'll include a link in the module materials. And keep in mind you can't use a view to update multiple base tables, so this really just has to be kept simple. There's a quick example here of a statement that I ran already to update the person table via the male person view. And I just changed this guy's name, as you can see here. So that's an example of a query that uses an updatable view to update records. That's it for this series of videos. I hope you learned a lot about SQL in this course and that you'll be able to put it to use. Good luck!